barely hanging on to the list at number 15 is Superman the Ride. Now, this roller coaster is by far the best layout on a hypercoaster that you could get. It is not the best hypercoaster, but it is definitely the best layout. And I gotta say, I was really impressed. Although I only did get one ride, and that was in 2017. That was 2 years ago. But from that one ride, I can definitely say this thing is powerful. This has crazy ejector. It used to be the best ride at Six Flags New England until something else was built, which is on this list. But I have to say, man, this thing is crazy. This is an incredible roller coaster. The ejector airtime is phenomenal, and I think that this ride definitely deserves more. I feel like that it's really underrated and it's not talked about enough, and I feel like it should be. So with that being said, let's move on to our number 14 spot. And the number 14 spot is going to Nitro. This is a B&M hypercoaster. This is actually my first ever B&M hypercoaster. And this thing's incredible. If you want to talk about airtime, you ride this thing. This is definitely a more intense B&M hyper. I was really impressed when I went after this. This was crazy. Despite being my first B&M hyper, this is definitely one of my favorite B&M hypers. I think it's really incredible, and I don't think it's talked about enough. I feel like that this thing deserves a lot better hype, and this is definitely the second best ride in the park. There is something else in the park that's a lot better, but this is still an incredible roller coaster. It's actually really intense. That double helix is pretty insane. A back row night ride on this is really good. If you definitely want a back row night ride, that's going to give you the best ride on this thing. I've been riding this thing since 2016, and I still love this roller coaster, and that's exactly why that Nitro definitely makes my top 15 list. So let's move on to number 13, and number 13 is going
Boulder
to
Dash. Now this thing, if you want to talk about a world-class wooden coaster, I say go to Boulder Dash. This thing's insane. And the freaking sensation of flying through the woods on a roller coaster is so amazing. You're so uncontrolled on this ride. This ride is wild. It is insane. It's a little rough. It's not a very smooth roller coaster. This thing it beats you up. There's no doubt about it. This is not a smooth roller coaster. I'd say one of the roughest parts is right here, the straight section. But the flying sensation of soaring through the woods is just incredible. This is just an amazing roller coaster, and I think that it's really underrated as well. I think the roughness would definitely takes away some of the good parts of this ride. Like, I feel like this ride would be 20 times better if it wasn't rough. But the freaking flying through the woods is just insane. It's a little sketchy because, you're like, holy crap, am I going to get hit by a deer? But, they just retract the triple up, and now it's a double up. So this ride is a little bit smoother, but it's still a great wooden coaster, and it's great if it makes my top 15. At number 12, we have Millennium Force. Now, this is actually the first ever Giga coaster ever built, and I think that this roller coaster is super amazing. It makes my top 15. It's 310 feet tall. It was the first ever Giga coaster, and yeah, it is a little forceless. But I gotta say, I did grade out on the first turn, and I remember going through it, I was like, wow, I actually just grayed out. Holy crap, this thing is kind of intense. And I was actually shocked. I didn't think it was going to be that intense, and it is a little airtimeless, and I'd say the rest of the ride is definitely weak. But one thing this roller coaster does so amazing is the speed. You're doing 93 miles an hour, and you're doing it the entire ride. You never, ever lose your pace. This is a great paced roller coaster. It's very long, and I gotta say, actually, it did feel pretty short. Despite being like 6,900 feet of track, even it just didn't feel that long. But I think the reason of that is because you're doing 93 miles an hour. It's not like there's two lift hills, so the ride isn't as long as in duration, but it is long as in feet. But I think this roller coaster is good. There's a good pop of airtime towards the end. It's a pretty intense moment on the first turnaround, and I think that Millennium Force is definitely underrated and is one of my favorite roller coasters at Cedar Point. So, Millennium Force taking number 12. Number 11, I think, is going to be a shocker. This is actually Steel Force. This is a Morgan Hypercoaster at one of two of my home parks. This is at Dorney Park, and I've been riding this thing since I was like 8 years old, and I gotta say, this is a fan favorite for me. This thing is just classic. It's a Morgan Hypercoaster. I think it's pretty vintage. It's a really fun roller coaster. The freaking airtime on this thing is insane. The restraints don't even touch you. Oh my god, I can't even. Dude, this ride is so amazing. It does get a tad bit rough on that turn at the end, but the speed going through it is so insane. It's such a long turn, and the airtime on this thing's incredible. A back row ride with those Morgan hyper restraints is insane. This whole roller coaster is just airtime after airtime after airtime. And I think that this ride is so underrated that it definitely deserves more. This thing is incredible. This needs to be more talked about more. And I don't know why something like this isn't at Cedar Point, because something like this is insane. And I think Steel Force is definitely a contender for the other hypercoasters on this list. So Steel Force taking number 11. Just barely cracking the top 10 is Magnum XL200 at Cedar Point. This is actually my favorite hypercoaster I've ridden, and I gotta say, this thing is insane. This is literally my favorite hypercoaster, and it's also the first hypercoaster. Cedar Point's just like, you know what? There's these, like, $100 million B&M hypers. Hey, we'll just throw an $8 million Arrow and make it better than all the hypers. Like, hello? Like, what is going on? This thing is insane. It is so weird, though. Like, the transitions are so weird, but it's so bumpy and vintage. I love it. It's such a fun kind of bumpy. The airtime moments at the end, it's insane. It is just airtime after airtime. This thing's incredible with amazing out and back layout. The light up tunnel at the end is incredible, and I think that this roller coaster is pretty good, and I definitely would say that this roller coaster should not be torn down. I know it is a roller coaster landmark, and my God, it deserves to be, and I really hope this thing sticks around. Taking the number 9 spot is Twisted Timbers at King's Dominion. Now, if you want airtime, you go on this stupid ride. This thing's incredible. The barrel roll drop is awesome. That was my first ever barrel roll drop. I haven't ridden Storm Chaser or Medusa yet, so I'm sure I'll experience more of those eventually. But I feel like Twisted Timbers is probably one of the more airtime-filled RMCs that I've ridden. I mean, this thing's pretty awesome. The RMC, they really did a good job with this roller coaster. It's got unique elements. It's a little funky. The cutback's a good element. And then you also have that trick track double up weird thing, storm chase. I don't even know, but it's just weird and funky. The airtime on this thing is incredible. And I think that that's what makes Twisted Timbers so special. It's a very long, powerful layout. It has 3 inversions. They squeeze in that 3rd inversion, man. That thing is crawling at the end, but I don't know. This is a long ride. It's a fun ride. It's really good. It's got a lot of airtime, and it deserves number 9 spot on my top 15 list. Taking the number 8 spot is Maverick at Cedar Point. Now, I feel like this was the inspiration for RMC roller coasters. This is a mini Intimidator 305. It's got those intense switchbacks, the camelbacks, the outward banking, like twisting weird thing. Like these powerful turns. It's such a fast-paced ride, and it's so small. It's literally 100 feet tall, and this thing's doing like 80 miles an hour, flying. The Twisted Horseshoe Roll is awesome. That has some great hang time if you go on opening day, actually. I went on opening day, so it was running a little slow, but it was still really powerful, and it deserves a spot on my top 15 list. This thing's incredible. I think that Maverick is what started the RMC elements and all that stuff, like the wave turn and the zero-G stall, and I feel like that is why RMC did those elements. I think it all started from this roller coaster. That's my theory, and I don't know if that's what is true or not, but Maverick is an outstanding roller coaster. If you've ridden Intimidator 305, you will know what this thing is like, and I think that this is such a powerful roller coaster that this is just an amazing ride. So, yeah. Maverick. Now, this is definitely going to shock some people, but I think Storm Runner is going to take 7 because this ride is so amazing. It is so short, but it's really sweet. It's short but sweet, but incredible. This thing's awesome. The acceleration is freaking fast as crap. You don't even know what just happened. You're just like, it's like as you go through the acceleration, you wonder, like, what just happened? Like, what it's like what just happened. It's super weird. The elements are awkward on this thing, but it's just really good. The acceleration is what makes this ride
awesome. The voice sounds like Dakota from Coaster Studios. Launches out 80 miles an hour in like 2 seconds or 1.7 seconds. It's actually got one of the fastest accelerations in the world. You go through a top hat, and then you go into these really weird elements that are actually fun. This is just a really fun ride. I think Storm Runner is not talked about enough, but it's still a great roller coaster. And, it just gives me like it's just a good roller coaster. And that's why it's on this list. All right, number 6 is going to Lightning Rod. Now, I gotta say, this thing is a bit overrated, okay? It's not better than El Toro, and it is definitely rough. It is a rough RMC. I know you're like, what? That's not even possible. But yes, it is a rough RMC, and it did not age well. But the transitions on this roller coaster is what made it to this list. The speed and the transitions that shouldn't even be legal. I don't even know why, how are they, allowed? I don't even know, man. The freaking twist and shout is insane. The quadruple down, even though it's, 6 downs, it's, something like that. It's just incredible. I think that this roller coaster is insane. I don't think it's better than El Toro, but it is such an awesome roller coaster, and it's also the fastest wooden roller coaster in the world, and that is why Lightning Rod is on this list. Now, all the coasters from here on out are amazing, and I'm sorry if your favorite roller coaster isn't on this list, but the roller coasters on the top 5 are insane. Taking the number 5 spot is Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion. Now, this was actually my first ever Giga coaster, and I remember how terrified I was of this thing. I was like, oh my god, it's 300 feet tall, but yet I've been on King Dakar before that, so I remember I was super scared, and I did it, and I was like, holy crap, that's insane. And that's, I think, this roller coaster is what really started to get me on my roller coaster journey, I like to call it, to get my credits up and stuff. And I think this is what started it all, because this was the breaker for my fear of all roller coasters. I got through King Dakar, I got through I-305, and then I knew I was like, I'm tackling Millennium Force, and I'm getting through Fury and Steel Vengeance, and I did. And this was actually my number 1 for a year and a half until I rode something else, 4 other roller coasters that just were a little bit better than I-305. But I-305 is still a phenomenal roller coaster, don't get me wrong. Nombre Cuatro is going to Wicked Cyclone. If you catch this thing running fast, you're in for a treat. This thing is so insane. This is a small RMC makeover that turns out to be better than the big RMC makeovers. This is my second favorite RMC I've ridden. And the other 2 RMCs are actually pretty big. Every RMC I've ridden is on this list. And Wicked Cyclone, it was actually my first RMC as well. And this thing is incredible. I remember I was so small when I rode this, and the restraints on it, I had so much wiggle room because of that airtime. Holy crap, this thing was incredible. This is an amazing roller coaster. I'd say that the smaller makeovers are better than the larger ones sometimes. And if you catch Wicked Cyclone running fast, this is such a fun and incredible roller coaster. Wicked Cyclone is number 4, my second favorite RMC, as well as my first ever RMC. And number 3, the bronze medal is going to Fury 325. Now, I rode this roller coaster total of 9 times. I rode it once in the day and 8 times in the night. And a back row night ride on this freaking Giga coaster is the best ride you'll ever. Holy crap! I just had so much fun thinking about it. I'm having fun right now thinking about this roller coaster. This is definitely one of the most intense B&M coasters I've ridden. It's not the most intense I've ridden. That definitely goes to I-305. But this roller coaster is insane. I actually caught Fury trimless on the final 3 camelbacks. So it was insane sustained ejector the entire ride. The final 3 camelbacks are insane. It does crawl towards the end if you don't get it trimless. But, if it's trimless, then you're in for an awesome roller coaster. It kind of goes the same for Wicked Cyclone. So this ride is amazing. Back row night ride is the way to go on this thing. You fall forever on that drop, and that is why Fury 325 is taking the bronze medal on my top 15 list. Taking the silver medal is going to El Toro. Now, this was the roller coaster that actually overtook I-305, even though I've ridden El Toro before I-305. El Toro was my number one for a while until I rode I-305. That was my number one for about a year and a half. Until this year, I rode it in the back row. Before I rode the number one spot, this thing was insane. And this thing took over I-305 and was my number one for a short period of time until I rode something else. But this roller coaster is insane. I've never gone down the drop of this roller coaster without holding on for dear life, feeling that I'm going to die. Because this roller coaster feels like you're going to die. When you're riding this thing, you feel like you're about to get killed. You get sucked over that drop. The airtime hills on this are insane. The Camelback, the Rolling Thunder Hill is so crazy. Oh my gosh. It's so amazing. I don't even know how this thing is legal as well. And then you go through these I-305 switchbacks. And this roller coaster, man, it is rough. This is a rough roller coaster. It is not smooth at all, but this is definitely my favorite wooden coaster, and I honestly don't see anything overtaking it. And the golden medal goes to Steel Vengeance, and I gotta be honest, it's not even that close to El Toro on how good this thing is. The sheer intensity, the airtime, the everything you want, the speed, the stats, whatever, it doesn't matter. You tell me what Steel Vengeance has, and it's good. It doesn't matter what category it is, it's probably doing it good. This is my favorite roller coaster out of 127 roller coasters I've ridden, and I gotta say, this thing is amazing, and, you know, I don't see anything overtaking it in the past, and I mean, the only thing I could see possibly is Iron Gwazi, and I don't know. I don't even know is that thing even dueling? I haven't really looked up anything about that, but man, Steel Vengeance Trimless is insane. This is the best roller coaster I've ever ridden. I don't care what you say. It's not close to El Toro. The airtime, it's so much airtime. Most airtime on any roller coaster in the world. Just everything. It's just every stupid hill is ejector. There's 4 perfectly timed inversions. The pacing is amazing. You never slow down on this thing. It's so awesome, and I'm definitely going back to Cedar Point next year, or even possibly this year, just to ride Steel Vengeance, because that's all I want to do. I remember this thing was closed, and I was like, holy crap, I'm not going to be able to ride it. And then at the last minute, it opened, and I got one night ride on it. Holy crap. And then I rode it 9 more times the next day. But oh my god, Steel Vengeance is my number one, without a doubt, and it's not even that close. So thank you guys for watching this, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.